A crowded restaurant hummed with quiet chatter and the clinking of glasses, but every sound seemed to blur when Ethan stepped between the trembling waitress and the sharply dressed man who had raised his voice at her. "She's with him," Ethan said, his tone steady but firm enough to slice through the room's tension. The billionaire heiress, seated at the corner table with her entourage, froze mid-reach for her glass, her eyes locking on the single dad who had just changed the rhythm of her evening. Something about the way he stood, protective but calm, as though he had learned to bear storms without letting them spill over, made her heart stutter. Everyone else saw just another customer defending a waitress. She saw a man who carried invisible stories behind highs. Ethan hadn't meant to draw attention. He was only there to pick up takeout after his long shift at the garage, thinking about how his daughter, Lily, would be waiting for him with a crooked smile and 1,000 questions about her homework. But when he'd watched the waitress shrink under the cutting remarks of a wealthy diner, he couldn't let it go. Standing up for people had been second nature to him ever since life forced him to stand tall for Lily after her mother left. Hegwided the waitress behind him with a small nod, then glanced around, aware of the gazes burning into his back. One of them belonged to her, the woman whose name everyone knew, but whose life none truly understood. Clara Montgomery had spent most of her 26 years watching the world through tinted glass limousines, penthouse windows, designer sunglasses, heiress to a global luxury empire. She had everything except the freedom to breathe without an audience. The night had begun like every other networking dinner. Her father's old friends and their polished children circling her as though she were a trophy to be admired or acquired. Then Ethan's voice cut through low and certain, and something inside her shifted. He didn't flinch under the stares. He didn't seem to recognize Eros anything more than another person at a table. She envied that steadiness. After the manager ushered the agitated man away, Clara watched Ethan check on the waitress and head for the exit, his takeout bag swinging lightly from one hand. An impulse she couldn't name urged her to move, to not let the moment end. She excused herself from her companions and followed, catching up with him just outside where the city air smelled faintly of rain. "Wait," she called. Ethan turned, his tired eyes softening as he took in her expensive dress, her hesitant stance. "I just wanted to thank you." No one usually says anything in situations like that. "It's nothing," he replied, shifting the bag in his hands. "Sometimes you just have to step in." He looked ready to leave, but Clara wasn't finished. There was a quiet dignity in him that didn't belong to the bustling sidewalks or the flash of cameras waiting across the street. She asked his name, and when he gave it, she found herself telling him hers, though he didn't react with the awe she was used to. He simply nodded as if her identity mattered less than the way she had spoken over the next few days. Clara couldn't shake the memory of Ethan's calm presence. She tracked down the little diner where he sometimes brought Lily after work and watched from the door as he laughed with his daughter. The kind of laugh that crinkled the corners of his eyes. She hesitated before stepping inside, unsure if she belonged in a world where love seemed so simple and unpolished. Ethan greeted her with mild surprise, but no judgment, inviting her to sit. Lily, curious and bright-eyed, asked who she was, and Clara smiled, answering carefully, hiding the weight of her surname. But Clara's life wasn't built for quiet corners. Rumors soon drifted through her circle. Whispers about Thury spending time with a mechanic. Story spun to tarnish both their reputations. Her father, protective of the family name, confronted her, warning that she couldn't risk their legacy for a man who didn't fit their image. Clara felt the old chains tighten, but she couldn't forget the way Ethan had stood in that restaurant, steady as a harbor. She wanted that steadiness, not only for herself, but for someone who might look at her and see more than headlines. When she met Ethan again at the park where Lily was flying a kite, her heart pounded with both hope and fear. She told him about the pressure closing in, about how easy it would be to walk away, yet how impossible it felt. Ethan listened, his expression unreadable at first, then softened by understanding. "You don't owe anyone the version of yourself they've decided you should be," he said quietly. "The only thing you owe is to live in a way you won't regret later." Clara knew then that staying in the safety of expectation would mean losing herself entirely. She began carving small spaces of freedom, declining some social events, inviting Ethan and Lily to a low-key art exhibit, introducing them to a few friends who valued kindness over status. Slowly, she built a bridge between their worlds plank by plank. There were setbacks, tabloid snapping photos, her father's disappointment, Ethan's reluctance to expose Lily to scrutiny, but each obstacle only tested how much they were willing to fight for something real. One rainy evening, Clara found herself again in that same restaurant, this time waiting at a corner table. Ethan arrived late, his hair damp. Lily tucked under his arm with a coloring book. He looked at Clara and saw not the Aries the city adored or envied, but the woman who had chosen to sit with him through storms. As they shared a quiet meal, Clara realized she no longer felt frozen under anyone's gaze. The warmth between them, the laughter spilling from Lily's lips, was a quiet rebellion against a world too eager to measure worth and numbers. By the time they stepped outside, the rain had stopped. Clara slipped her hand into Ethan's, not caring about the cameras across the street or the whispers they might ignite. Life would never be as simple as the stories people told about them, but it could be honest, and in honesty, there was room for courage, love, and the promise of a life built on choice rather than expectation, a life they were beginning.